Hello, dear listeners. On this week's episode of You Are What You Read, we are joined by the New York Times bestselling author Allison Pataki. I adore her. She's quite brilliant. She's a master of historical fiction, and she plucks women out of history and gives us the woman's life in full. Allison's the author of 11 books of historical fiction. She's also written children's books and a memoir. And a couple of my favorites are Finding Margaret Fuller and The Magnificent Lives of Marjorie Post. Allison's new novel, which is going to be worldwide today, is called It Girl. It follows the rise of Evelyn Talbot, America's first self-made female celebrity and model. And of course, it's tucked into the crime of the century. So you're going to be turning pages long into that dark night. We are so happy to bring you my friend, Allison Pataki. Your passion for history and the characters that populate it, that you fictionalize, I think it comes from your roots. Your dad was our beloved governor, George Pataki.
Yes.
And your beautiful mother was the first lady.
Yes.
I just wanted to say that to everybody.
Yes.
And they're in great health, right?
I'm knocking on wood as we say this because they're great. My dad really annoys me because he does these cognitive aptitude tests and he's aging in reverse. He's like, I've got the mental aptitude of an 18-year-old. I'm like, that's not fair. But yes, they're doing great.
I just had my beloved aunt. She went to get she had to draw a clock, and she called me and said I didn't do well drawing the clock. I said, well, I knew you when you were 30 and you couldn't draw a clock then either. So
so you haven't lost it. You still got it.
Cease and desist. Why don't you make a meatball for them and then you can prove how cognitive brilliant you are.
There you
go.
Now
you also have some Italian genes in there, don't you, Allison?
I sure do. Matteo Lagana. My beloved grandmother, Peggy Lagana Pataki, who I dedicated my first book to because she was the storyteller. She had lived the life of, the child of the immigrant. So her father, Matteo Lagana, came through Ellis Island from Reggio Calabria, the tip of the boot. So Peggy, my beloved grandmother, who's my soulmate, she grew up the child of these immigrants in the tenements of New York City. She remembered being force-fed cod liver oil during the Spanish influenza. She remembered driving around in her father's Model T Ford selling the bootleg gin. Mm-hmm. And she had stories of the Great Depression and World War II and just truly the American life of over the course of the 20th century. And she would sit at her kitchen table, and because she was Italian, there was always something delicious to eat. And she would feed us literally food and stories. And she brought history to life. She brought New York City during the Great Depression and during the Great War and then World War II. She brought all of this to life for me as a girl, and that was a treasure and a gift for the course of my whole entire life. And so I credit her. I credit my other grandmother, who was a French immigrant, World War II bride. I credit my mother and my father, and they were the storytellers who ingrained this love of history and storytelling in me.
It is really a wonderful gift that you give us every time a book comes out. I'm right there to get it. It's such an honor for me to talk to you because, Allison, frankly, you're the real deal. There we were freezing at the Today Show. We did that together. I mean, through the years, we found each other, in the tundra.
Oh, my goodness.
And you've always been one of my favorite people. And to read you this time, and I know someday you're going to write about that Italian corridor in your family.
Exactly. We're going to go to Italy together to research it.
We're going to do it.
You promised me that cold morning during COVID when we were outside at the Today Show. We made a plan. We're going to go to Italy together. We made a plan.
So we're going to make it happen, and we're going to bring your girls and your husband. Yes. We're going to have a ball, and we're going to bring my people. But yes. I got to tell you, you choose women in history that are often forgotten, marginalized, or footnoted. Now, you really fictionalized Evelyn Nesbit here, didn't you?
Yes,
Okay.
exactly.
And we
Yes.
call her Evelyn Talbot.
Yes.
But what you did is you took the facts and you just, it's almost like sea monkeys. You put the
Mhm.
facts in the water and then it went like this. Tell us why. Now, listen, there's a lot of show business in here, and you know that's my
Yeah.
jam. But,
Yes,
but tell
exactly.
us why you chose her right now, because I have a theory, but I want to hear from you first why you chose
Oh.
her. I have
Oh,
a
I want
theory.
I want to hear this theory. Well, okay, so
Okay.
first of all, I'm going to bottle up everything you said and store it in my heart to take out anytime there's a rainy day or anytime that you I think that's probably literally the
We got
nicest
them.
thing anyone has ever said. And I would like my husband and my children to hear all of the nice things you just said, because that's very, very generous. But thank you. I find these women each time through a totally organic process. I probably give my agent the worst whiplash because I jump from the American Revolution to, an English, I jump from the American Revolution to a French empress back to the America. I've really been all over, but it's because I find these women in these unexpected moments. And with each character that I land on, I have this moment of outrage of how did I not know her story? How have
Mhm.
I not heard this? This is just too good to be true, but it is. So this is the book I need to write. And
Mhm.
I say it to my husband. I say, I know when I have found my next book because I've been bitten. I've been bitten by this story. It has sunk its teeth into me and it's not going to let go. And that is when I know I have met my next subject and I have met my next book.
Amazing.
So with Evelyn, I grew up knowing vaguely the lore and the
Mhm.
mythology of the Gibson girl. This
Mhm.
was this iconic woman a century ago at the dawn of the 20th century who was the first, if you will, influencer. This was the girl in America that every girl wanted to be and every man wanted to have. And this was the girl where if you know the images of the Gibson girl, they were these elegant black and white images of these women with these huge hairstyles and these elegant outfits. And they were doing these glamorous things like washing their hands to sell soap or, trying a specific brand of perfume or milk. And these women's images were everywhere. And I found these images very, very intriguing. But I didn't know there was a real woman behind them who was the inspiration, who was the it girl. And when I discovered that there was a real woman behind this mythology of the Gibson girl, and her name was Evelyn Nesbit, and that she got pulled into this sordid, salacious, dramatic love triangle that was known as that became part of a murder mystery that was known as the crime of the century. I thought, that is too good. How do we not know this story? And I thought, a real life Gibson girl, the crime of the century, a murder mystery, happily ever after, totally ruined. I thought, that is a really, really good story. And so she was the first showgirl. We're having a showgirl moment with Taylor Swift. And, you have these moments, Marilyn Monroe, Taylor Swift, Madonna, these women who are larger than life, who capture the collective imagination. Evelyn was the first it girl. Evelyn was the first iconic self-made showgirl of American pop culture. She really birthed this concept of American pop culture. She was the first, celebrity. So I just thought, this is too good to be true. But
Too
it's true.
good. Too
So I
good.
have to write it. Now, what's your
Yeah.
theory?
Well, your character has a hard scrabble background, and her
Yes.
mother basically shoves her into show business,
Yes.
which often happens. I mean, most of us that get into show business have a dream, but that wasn't Evelyn's dream. You made that
Right.
very clear. She
Right.
had the men in their family kind of abandoned them, and they had to sing for
Hmm.
their supper. Is really what happened. No, but
Exactly.
I read this. I had just written a Substack about the Joan Crawford restoration
Uh-huh.
of the movie. Yes, so it's very
Yes.
much that era. I
Yes.
felt the
Yep.
turn of the century era about Joan
Yep.
Crawford and Rain and the Epstein files.
Yeah.
And
Yes. Yes.
okay, so for everybody out there that is just
Mm-hmm.
devastated, as every woman I know
Mm-hmm.
is,
Mm-hmm.
yours is a great companion read
Hmm.
about how a young woman gets co opted and pushed into something she doesn't understand, because they call them young women, but you and I call them children.
Yes, she was a girl. She was a girl. She
She
was
was a
16.
child. She was
Mm-hmm.
a child. And then once you have these men, like, let's make it in quotation marks, important men
Mhm.
after you,
Mhm.
as a child, and this has been explored in literature since time immemorial,
Exactly.
the child has to find a way to get agency over her life. And that's what you do in this book.
Yes.
This is like a peeling of that onion. And I'm going to
Yes.
tell you, Allison, it's expertly done
Oh, thank you.
because you stay in her heart, soul, and experience, and you help us
Mm.
understand how she's being co opted
Mhm.
by her gifts, which are her
Mhm.
beauty, her talent, and
Mhm.
her humor. She's a very
Mhm.
funny girl. And
Mhm.
you explain how she went down that road in an
Mhm.
era
Mhm.
where women, the Gibson girl, let's talk about that because it's
Yes.
really interesting because the bustle was going, the
Yeah.
clothes were changing,
Yeah.
the furniture was changing, and we're on the cusp of the discovery of airplanes, cars, the
Yes.
cotton gin. Tell us.
Yes, yes. So we are in the dawn of the 20th century, and it is this
Mhm.
bold, fresh new era. You've got a young President Teddy Roosevelt. You're in New York City. You've got electricity. You've got the subway. You've got the automobile, and you've got the camera. And so you have photography too for the first time. And so the lock that Lena Astor and the old blue-blooded patricians have on society, this Gilded Age clique of the 400, that is loosening. And you have got this new wave of culture coming up. Front and center as part of this is the young showgirls, the girls who are modeling in front of the cameras to be artists, muses, and models. And you've got the advent of Broadway. And so you've got this crop of beautiful, charismatic, more or less, or more than they had ever heretofore been, independent young working girls who are rising to the top of society and the society pages, not because they are debutante brides, but because they are talented performers, models, and artists' muses. And so you have Evelyn, who is at the top of the heap because she is the most charismatic and the most enchanting and the most beautiful and talented. And it's as you said, Evelyn on the stage, or Evelyn as an artist's model, plays these roles from time immemorial. She plays Cleopatra. She plays Eve in the Garden of Eden. She plays Salome. She plays the femme fatale. These women who are just a little too beautiful and a little bit too alluring for their own good. And what do we see? We see a tale as old as time. We see men who blame the beautiful young woman for their bad behavior and for the wars they wage on each other and themselves. It's not new. She's dressing up as Helen of Troy in front of the camera to play the role, and then her own personal backstory and personal life is mirroring that art. And so I thought, this is so interesting. I am going to have Evelyn engage with this trope of the dangerous beauty who causes the downfall of these powerful men, but I'm going to have her weaponize that and sort of use it to rewrite her own ending and to give the true historical figure of Evelyn Nesbit the ending that she never got. Because you know what? It's incredibly dissatisfying to me that we are still seeing this trope play out, even to this day, of the young girl who's just a little too beautiful and the men can't handle it, and it causes it
Well,
causes their downfall.
I don't understand these old men. I have a real problem with this, and I am trying, and I'm calling people and I'm saying, walk me through this. But
Yeah.
your book really does it. The
Hmm.
men in this book are fascinating
Mm.
because you paint them, two of them, as all powerful.
I heard a quote, and I'm going to paraphrase this because I
Okay.
cannot remember who I attribute it to, but I heard a quote that every interaction in human behavior is about sex, except sex, which is about power. I thought that was interesting, and there some of that comes to bear in crafting this story of Evelyn. But what we have with the history here is you have a beautiful young girl who is plucked from obscurity, parentless, penniless, protectionless. She, in terms of the social dynamics, She has as close to no power as a person can have.
So she is ripe for the predators of the
Yes.
world.
Yes, she
Okay.
is thrust on this pedestal by society because Evelyn first became the most sought after and in demand artist's muse. So she had these powerful artists like Charles Dana Gibson, James Carroll Beckwith, wanting to paint her and capture her image. Her image then is used to sell across the country, and she becomes one of the most recognizable faces in the country. From there, while she is still young, it is an easy jump to the stage. And Evelyn is thrust onto the stage and quickly becomes the belle of Broadway, dancing in the footlights in this moment in time when the chorus girl was becoming a sensational new thing.
You
And so
also describe the Broadway of that time, that this city, there were
yeah.
hundreds of shows.
Yes, and it was all new, the great right way. It was being, New York City was being lit up for the first time and becoming the mecca and the center of show business and the theater. And so Evelyn is really rides that wave and it is the figure in this moment in time. And then what happens is she attracts the attention of these wealthy, powerful men. And there was a whole procession of them, and they were called Stage Door Johnnies and Champagne Charlies. These were the men who fell in love with Evelyn when she was on the stage, and they would do anything they could to meet her and woo her and court her. But two in particular rise to the front of the line because of their power and their proximity to her. And in real life, these were the characters of the great famed architect Stanford White and the Pittsburgh millionaire who coined the term playboy. He was known as the first playboy. He was the heir to millions and this railroad empire, and his name was Harry Thaw. And so these two men, both fall quote unquote madly in love, in lust with Evelyn, and it becomes this really sordid, dangerous love triangle because neither one of these men is used to sharing, and neither one of these men is used to having anybody get in their way and prevent them from having what they want. And they both want Evelyn. They both want to possess Evelyn. Now, as you said, in the real life, they were these two men. I use the raw ingredients of this story, of the courtships, the marriages, the betrayals, the adultery, the seduction, and then I wanted to play and I wanted to make it my own. And I really wanted to tell this story with Evelyn's voice shining with agency. And so I play, it was a hit. It was the inspiration of the story, but I also gave myself license as a writer of historical fiction to lean into the fiction aspect of that. So I chose to change their last names just to give myself that liberty and that room to play.
And I'm glad you changed the names because, I've been down that road and I got my hiney kicked because I used the
Same.
real names. And
Yes.
it's just sort of like, okay, we're writing
Yeah.
fiction, but
I'm
whatever.
writing fiction. Yeah,
But we
exactly.
but we know, so it frees us. But
Yes.
I want to read a little bit of this and have you respond to this, because when the character of Hal is introduced in a certain
Mm.
way, well, I just love some of this. Okay. This is a little letter he wrote to her. My dear Evelyn, you know I love you. But if it is only friendship between us that you desire, then we can be dear friends. Your happiness is my happiness. Forever yours, Hal. To my surprise, and this is Evelyn talking, to my surprise, I see the words begin to blur and dance before me as a thin misting of tears fills my eyes. My happiness is his happiness. Hal, ever thoughtful, ever kind. He is a true friend indeed. In all this time, as he's poured out his care and his riches on my behalf, he's never asked for a single thing in return. He is a most singular man. That fact is driven home with a harsh clarity when, on our final morning at sea, I asked Mr. Ballard to bring me the latest news bulletins. I've spent the week of our crossing deliberately avoiding all news, blissfully relishing the isolation that the sea voyage offered. But now that we are set to step our feet back onto the land, I figure I ought to know at least a bit of what is happening in the world. Mr. Ballard promptly delivers me to the ship's latest news dispatches along with breakfast. I understand how everything works in the fictional worlds you create. even how the news is delivered.
Oh.
I just loved it. I sit upright in my bed and look over the pages in turn. My giddy pre arrival exuberance quickly dissipates when, as I scan each article, I see several tawdry reports that make mention of me.
Hmm.
The first report declares that my absence from Broadway has given fuel to the flames of rumor,
Mm,
and many wonder if I fled in order to have an operation.
mm,
Perhaps the world stripped with their dirty ink. Broadway's favorite star has found herself in the family way. I swallow my half chewed bite of pastry and note that it tastes dry as paper. I throw the page aside. This is the kind of riveting, inside the belly of the beast details that readers crave and
mm,
want to know how she feels.
mm,
How does it inform who she is, and
mhm.
how is she going to build her life going forward? Can you speak to that? Because I find the details of your writing so delicious I can't put the book down.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Oh, I love that. And I love how you said inside the belly of the beast, because that is so true. Well, so first of all, what we see there in the beginning is Evelyn being love bombed and being
Mhm.
wooed, and not all that glitters is going to turn out to be gold. You know, you wish
Mm-mm.
for Evelyn time and again to find the happy ending and the Cinderella story that she thinks she's finding. And unfortunately, these men do not turn out to be, you know, as you would say, the fifth act of the Shakespeare romance is, you know, the morning after. It's not
Yeah.
always happy at the breakfast table. That's the kind of situation Evelyn keeps finding herself in with these
Yep.
men who promise her the world. And then
Yep.
by the light of the next day, the fairy tale has turned rotten. So, what you see her here is being love bombed in extraordinary style, and her sailing to Europe and having this brief reprieve, sort of processing and contemplating her next move, as she has had to flee some pretty dark circumstances in New York City. And as she's hoping to leave that behind, and there's a man in the other end, you know, waiting for her to disembark from this ship, and he has just declared his love for her, and she is deciding how she feels about that, because really she doesn't feel an amorous love for him, but she feels a deep affection and friendship. And so, but he's offering her the happily
Wow.
ever after, so
That's
he
right.
claims. And so you're really getting into her head and her heart as she's trying to figure out what to do with the limited options that are at her disposal, the limited
Mhm.
resources that are at her disposal, because she on her own, as a young woman traveling more or less penniless without, you know, without protection, she doesn't have that many options available to herself. But um you know, when I am a reader, for me, it's the detail. It's the world building, and it's the escapist immersive read that I'm seeking. And so I try to deliver that to my reader. And the reason why I write the books that I write, and the reason why I choose the subjects I choose, is because they have taken up residence in my brain. And I am not going to, you know, you hear the voices too, right? I know you do. And so we hear these voices,
Mhm.
and there's really no way to get the voice out other than to write the character and to write the story that's leading you forward. And so for me, I know it's time to write a book when I just can't get the girl out of my head and I can't stop hearing her voice. And so what I'm then trying to do is get that out on the page to hopefully create that immersive experience for the reader.
Well, your process is fascinating to me. You really embody the character.
Mm,
And
mhm.
you, as you're saying, your subconscious can't shake them.
Yeah. Yeah, it's true.
That's why sometimes you're in ancient Greece or you're in ancient Egypt, and then you're in New York City
Yeah.
during the
Yeah.
dips and you know
Yes.
the golden age,
Yes.
the dawn of a new century. Can you speak to the inventions, the times now, as
Yeah.
they are reflected in the times of the turn of the last century?
Oh my goodness, what a timeline we are in now, right? There are so many parallels. And like, even just, we're only a few years out of the COVID pandemic, but I just couldn't help thinking of my grandmother and all her stories of the Spanish influenza and the, you know, what they lived through. And just really, again, with history, the more you learn and see, you think the more things stay the same. You know, the more things change, the more things stay the same. So This, to me, the dawn of the 20th century has always been one of the most fascinating moments to ponder and to get lost in your own imagination, because it was a moment of such tectonic shifting, particularly if you are in America and particularly if you are looking at New York. And this was really the time when America was becoming the great nation of the world and New York City was becoming the great city of the world. And this is the moment in which we find Evelyn, and this is the moment in which we find our story beginning. And what I find particularly interesting about that time period was it caught everyone by surprise. Teddy Roosevelt's presidency was a surprise. It was not planned. It was because McKinley was assassinated. Nobody knew what was going to happen with the subway. Nobody knew what was going to happen with Edison creating these new things like the light bulb and, electricity. And so much happened so quickly. And I feel like you can see those parallels today. We don't really know what we did. The internet caught us all by surprise, right? My childhood growing up in this moment, I remember the time before the internet. I remember a childhood without cell phones, without computers, without social media. That's completely foreign to my children. They can't even process when I talk about that. My grandmother just passed away a few years ago. She went her entire life without ever touching a cell phone or sending an email. To tell the children of today that that was her life, a woman that they knew, for them to even try and fathom what that would have looked like or felt like, it was a tectonic shift, much as it was a century ago when you think about electricity and the telephone and the camera and the automobile and just how much that changed society. So I think there are certainly so many parallels. And I think even look at AI. We have no idea. That story is unfolding on a daily basis right in front of us. We don't know where that's going. And so I think that there are murmurs, echoes, and reverberations that are frighteningly similar and parallels. And so for the book It Girl, New York City and the setting and this rapid fire pace of change and Broadway and technology, that's really another character in the book, because that is something that every single character here is engaging with. And it's a really exciting time period. And I've never written in this moment before. So this was a first for me. And I just loved it. It was sizzly, it was sparkly, it was crackly, it was glamorous, and it was gritty. And
It
it was just,
dazzles.
yeah.
This is a
Oh,
dazzling novel.
thank
Now,
you.
now I noticed pink,
Pink.
pink,
Yes.
and
I,
that makes me think of Pink and Kay
yes.
Thompson and Madonna when she
Yes.
did the send up of Gentlemen Prefer Blondes in the
Right.
80s, and
Right.
just the idea of this color, but it's a
Yeah.
very bold choice.
Yes. Yes. This cover, we deliberately decided it was not going to look like some ponderous, heavy velvet drapes historical fiction. This
Mm-mm.
looks like it could be like the opening shot of like a Bravo reality TV show. And
Absolutely.
we leaned into that because we thought this book is peeling back the veil. This book is the first reality show looking into the first reality star. Evelyn was the first female whose life was available for public consumption by pop culture. She was written about in the papers, the tabloids, the society pages. People wanted to know what she was wearing, how she was doing her hair, who she was dating, who she was marrying. As that excerpt that you read indicated, she was fodder for tabloid culture at the very beginning, the genesis of that shift in society. And so
It's
we said,
amazing.
let's lean into that campy, kind of glamorous aspect of the story, because she is, you're right, Madonna, Marilyn Monroe, Taylor Swift, The Life of a Showgirl, all these showgirls who
Oh
are larger
yeah,
than life,
Taylor
they
Taylor
they
Swift.
are
Yeah.
all in the wake and in the trail that Evelyn blazed as the first It Girl showgirl.
And when I finished the book, I said to myself, I did think about the velvet drapes in that
Yes.
era and the
Yes.
heavy Regency furniture and all that
Yes.
stuff. But then I went, no, 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 no. It was a gossamer reed. It was a
Oh,
chiffon.
Oh, yeah, because, the heavy velvet drapes were the men. The heavy velvet drapes were, the architect's, den of iniquity was she was the
Sure.
girl in the red velvet swing. Everything was heavy red Victorian drapery and velvets. But we are taking Evelyn out of that world and giving her the agency and the story. And we thought, let's not lean into the heavy red velvet. Let's give her the pink, the pink and gold
Mhm.
sparkle.
Loved it.
And so
I exactly, the dazzling gold. I mean, it just what a sumptuous read. Another great one
Thank
from you,
you.
Allison Pataki.
Thank
Another
you.
great one.
Thank
This is
you.
gonna be a big bestseller and you deserve it. And I
Oh,
just
thank you.
always can't wait to see what you're gonna come up with next. You're one of my favorite
Oh.
people on earth, and
Oh,
this is a home run.
likewise. Thank
This is a
you, and I
home
can't
run.
I can't wait to see you next. You're the
Yes,
it
yes.
girl.
Oh, well, you're my it girl, and I'm just thrilled to have you on. So thank you, thank you.
Thank you for having me.